When I was little, my father was famous. He was the greatest samurai in the empire. He cut off the heads of 131 lords.
Hey, everybody. Now, you're probably wondering what this is. This is a perfect circle. Okay, you probably weren't wondering that. You were probably wondering why it's up here. It's here because I keep getting comments from people saying, if the Earth is supposed to be an oblate spheroid or pear-shaped, like Neil deGrasse Tyson says, then the pictures NASA puts out of the Earth are all fake because they are all perfect circles. And I'm here to show you that no, they are not. It's just that they are so close enough to perfect circles that at a glance you can't tell the difference, especially with the low quality ones. Now, you might suspect that this is where I say, to prove my point, you thought this was a perfect circle, but it's not. But no, this is a perfect circle. The dimensions are on the screen. This new one on the right is not a perfect circle. It is slightly oblate. Not much, just to about the degree that most current data about the size of the Earth says. But you can't tell the difference, can you? You don't even know if I'm telling the truth about which one of these is the oblate shape. Or if I tell you all of these shapes are oblate except for one, you can't tell. Yet, globe deniers will say that they know for a fact that the photos they've seen of the Earth are perfect circles, and thus they are fake, or NASA is lying about it being oblate. But the fact is, the difference in the equatorial radius and the polar radius of the Earth is about 10.5 kilometers, which seems like a lot. But when you shrink it down to an image seen on a screen like this, we're talking little more than a pixel difference. And that's my point of view on my screen. From your view, it's even less than that. It might as well be a perfect circle. But as the data shows, it's not. And by the way, when you encounter images like this, you have to be careful about the simple top-level data too. Take this perfect circle. The data says that vertically and horizontally, the dimensions are the same. But the reason we know it's a perfect circle is because if I rotate it to any degree, the dimensions stay the same. This display only reads the horizontal and vertical dimensions on the screen, not the original horizontal vertical dimensions. But you can see no matter how much I rotate, the dimensions stay the same. Perfect circle. Now this one says the dimensions are the same. So some might look at this and say, that one is a perfect circle. But in reality, this is an oblate object that has been rotated 45 degrees. It's only when I measured along different points that we see that no, this is not a perfect circle. So even if you were measuring a picture of the Earth, you have to measure it along several points, not just horizontal and vertical. But none of this is evidence that pictures of the Earth aren't perfect circles. This is just establishing the fact that none of us would be able to tell the difference just by looking at them. Let's take a look at some official images of the Earth from NASA and weather agencies. High res, thousands of pixels each. We have a Himawari 8 picture, a high noon shot to have as little Terminator line shadow as possible, and an epic camera picture taken from a Lagrange point in deep space. Let's slap a perfect circle on top of them. Now, what is considered the outermost part of the Earth in each photo will be pretty subjective. So I'm going to make the circle a little bigger than the vertical diameter of the Earth and set it so there's the same amount of blackness of space on top and the bottom. If the Earth in these pictures are perfect circles, as globe deniers claim, then the blackness of space should be balanced all the way around, no matter how the Earth is positioned in the shot. Okay, let's go. Now, you can see with the Himawari 8 shot, the Earth is wider than it is tall. Not a perfect circle. Epic camera photo of the Earth. Oh, same thing. These are not perfect circles, but in fact are oblate. Now, some of you might be wondering why I'm not doing this with the Apollo 17 blue marble photo, and that's a good question. The reason is these Apollo images actually have too much Terminator shadow in them for my comfort, because even though when I've done it, it shows up as oblate, the placement of my circles will always appear to be really subjective, and globe deniers would focus on that more than anything. By the way, for a limited time, you'll be able to find layered PDFs of these placed circles and pictures at the link in the description. Open it up, judge my placement, and or try it out yourselves. That being said, this video is my response to any globe denier that claims the photos from NASA all show perfect circles. No, they don't. Oh, and some of you might be saying, well, what about the pear shape? Why didn't I show that? Well, that's because the dimensions of the Earth's pear-ness are even smaller than its oblateness. I can't show it in any meaningful way. But I can say earlier in the video, when I showed the 9 shapes with only one perfect circle, 3 of those shapes were slightly pear-shaped in their lower half. And guess what? You couldn't tell. No, you couldn't. In fact, you don't even know if I'm telling the truth about that right now. I am. Oh, and one more thing. A lot of people charge Neil deGrasse Tyson for making the Earth oblate and pear-shaped. They say, Earth was a sphere, and then suddenly Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's an oblate spheroid and pear-shaped. Just because Tyson was the first you heard say it doesn't mean that's when it happened. Hell, I first learned about it as an astrophysics student at UC Berkeley in the 1980s. And I later read it in an essay by Isaac Asimov, one of my all-time favorite authors, called The Relativity of Wrong, originally written in 1986. I'll link to it in the description. But here are some choice highlights, emphasis mine. Nowadays, of course, we are taught that the flat Earth theory is wrong, that it is all wrong, terribly wrong. Absolutely. But it isn't. The curvature of the Earth is nearly 0 per mile. So although the flat Earth theory is wrong, it happens to be nearly right. That's why the theory lasted so long. So although the flat Earth theory is only slightly wrong and is a credit to its inventors, all things considered, it is wrong enough to be discarded in favor of the spherical Earth theory. And yet, is the Earth a sphere? No, it's not a sphere, not in the strict mathematical sense. A sphere has certain mathematical properties. For instance, all diameters, that is, all straight lines that pass from one point on its surface through the center to another point on its surface, have the same length. That, however, is not true for the Earth. Various diameters of the Earth differ in length. Isaac Newton predicted the Earth would be oblate and was later proven correct. Asimov continues, the correction in going from spherical to oblate spheroidal is much smaller than going from flat to spherical. Therefore, although the notion of the Earth as a sphere is wrong, strictly speaking, it's not as wrong as the notion of the Earth as flat. Even the oblate spheroidal notion of the Earth is wrong, strictly speaking. In 1958, when the satellite Vanguard 1 was put into orbit about the Earth, it was able to measure the local gravitational pull of the Earth and therefore its shape with unprecedented precision. It turned out that the equatorial bulge south of the equator was slightly bulgier than the bulge north of the equator, and that the South Pole sea level was slightly nearer the center of the Earth than the North Pole sea level was. There seemed no other way of describing this than saying the Earth was pear-shaped. And at once, many people decided that the Earth was nothing like a sphere, but was shaped like a Bartlett pear dangling in space. Actually, the pear-like deviation from oblate spheroid perfect was a matter of yards rather than miles. And the adjustment of the curvature was in the millionths of an inch per mile. That was an article written in 1986 about discoveries in 1958 and the century prior. So for those of you wondering when the change happened, The Earth has been, at minimum, an oblate spheroid for the entire lives of everyone currently alive on this planet, and slightly, so slightly pear-shaped for everyone who was born after, say, 1960. You just didn't take advanced enough science classes. Or you weren't paying attention in class.
That's my job! That's what I do!
Thank you for your time. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit that little bell, and if you're interested in more from me, you can check out my AKA Greater Sapien channel, where I talk about everything else but the science deniers, and the Greater Apes podcast channel, where you'll see hours of nerdy but candid conversations between myself and my friend Jesse Vale. If you subscribe to my various channels, I can pretty much guarantee you'll get new content every day. And if you want early access to these and other unique videos, you can join my Patreon, links to all of which are in the description. Take care, everybody.
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Maybe you came by to congratulate me on last night's victory.